All right, Chris, pleasure to have you on. I know that we've connected on social media, none other than social media, and just talking pre-roll, getting to know a little bit about you on the personal side is very cool. But I'm excited for this episode
Yeah,
because
me too.
you're also in the home services space, and as we're an emerging brand ourselves at Junk Rate, I'm curious, selfishly just to learn the ins and outs of what's gone well, what hasn't gone well for you guys in your line of business, and just talk all things business growth and franchising, so on and so forth. So, for the audience, if you don't mind, just doing an intro for yourself, we'll get things moving.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks again. You never know what's going to come up with just connecting with someone and saying, hey, I like what you're doing and here's what I'm doing. And, couple messages back and forth and here we are. So
Yeah,
I'm Chris Stonis. I'm the founder of Elite Window Cleaning and Sparkle Squad. And the differentiator between those two is Elite Window Cleaning is a Canadian brand and Sparkle Squad is the mirror down in the US. They're both franchise organizations in the window cleaning, pressure washing, gutter cleaning, home detailing space. And I've been at this a really long time. So I'm excited to see where this conversation goes because I think I bring a unique vantage point to conversations like this that are unstructured in that this is a founder led organization. When I started Elite Window Cleaning back in 2012, I had a bucket, a borrowed car, and a lot of ambition.
yeah,
And I was able to stay and put those reps in the gym every step of the way over the last almost 12 years now. And this is what the output of more than a decade of trying your best every single day looks like. And I'm
yeah,
really proud of what we built. So that's kind of who I am, where I'm coming from. And
yeah,
I love franchising. We were talking before, you're beginning to franchise your business.
yeah,
I think that there's not much else that provides the soul food that franchising does. It's the ability to work with another person who's driven to succeed with the same objectives. Like it is so unusual to have the symbiosis of two people working towards the same objectives independently.
yeah,
And I love the industry. I just love working with our owners. And
yeah.
yeah, I'm excited.
That's great, man. I appreciate the intro. So for the audience and folks who maybe are just new to franchising, you're a franchisor. Have
That's
you ever
right.
been a franchisee prior to what you've done here at Elite Window and Sparkle Squad?
I have never been a franchisee. I have been an entrepreneur and founder. So before franchising, I grew this business, but I've
Yeah,
never owned a franchise. And I think that I think the blend of franchisee and entrepreneur are two different things that fall into the same kind of part of the Venn diagram of somebody who wants to make something of their life and
hmm,
have freedom and independence.
yeah,
I think where the overlap is entrepreneurs have all of this desire to create something out of nothing. They're going to figure it out. They're going to have a longer gestation period. They're going to have to screw up a lot more through the process.
yeah,
And franchisees want that same outcome, but they want a really predictable path. And
hmm,
it's less about what's better and what's worse. I think it's a personality type. Like some people want to figure it out and some people want to have the framework put around them so that they can succeed on their own. So they're
yeah,
both kind of independent ventures, but
yeah,
being a franchisee, I think in another life after everything I know now, I
hmm,
may take that route.
yeah,
I think I'll always be
yeah.
a business owner, but I think I would in hindsight, take the route of an established franchise.
It's funny you say that because I said that not too long ago. Not that being on the franchisor side of the house has discouraged me from continuing down the path. It's more so just generally speaking, and all of the knowledge capture that I've gone through personally, literally in the last 12 months, understanding the stats and the truths behind business ownership, startups, and all that stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
it's skewed so heavily in the favor of franchise concepts versus doing it independently. That I wish I had known that. I might have gotten into business ownership even sooner. Who knows? I may not even have even started Junk Raider independently. We're one of the ones that came out, on the other side of that statistic, and we're still alive and we're thriving, fortunately. But like, I would have gone into business ownership by way of a franchise had I learned everything that I know now back, 5, 10 years ago. Because
Yeah.
it's just the stats prove that, and it's if I think it takes a lot of good mentors around you, and the
Mhm.
franchise community provides that. But if
Yep.
you can just
It's a friend in every city. That's, it's a friend that you have a common language with in every, as our franchise system grows in its footprint, it's,
Mhm.
somebody can go from one side of the country to the other and
Yep.
have somebody that they know they've met, through Zooms, through meetings, through conferences, and they
Yeah.
build this bond around this unified goal of we run the same business. And I
Yeah.
think we have the luxury of hindsight, right? When we say like, I don't know that I would have started from scratch. I may have bought a franchise. Well, that's because from the vantage point of a franchisor, like as a CEO of a franchise organization, I know just how much my team puts into the care and dedication of the
Yeah.
success of our franchises. And
Mhm.
when you go it alone, you just don't have that team
Yeah.
focusing on your success, smoothing out the edges, giving you like the roadmap before you even leave the parking
Mhm.
lot. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of great things that franchising brings to the table, and I think in home services especially, there's a tremendous franchisors give franchisees and home services a lot of momentum. Like we're not a Taco Bell where you pick a good street corner, you franchise a Taco Bell, you open your doors, and people are gonna
Yeah.
come in. There isn't a ton of marketing or grit that we need to if we owned a Taco Bell would need the franchisor to give us. Home
Mhm.
services is the total opposite, right? You need to be
Totally.
able to go out there, penetrate your market, bring in customers, make enough noise that you stand out from the crowd. And all that
Mhm.
coaching comes from the ZOR level to shorten the time between open and cash flow positivity.
Yeah, totally. Let's dive into the nitty gritty with your business because and maybe it's just a kick I've been on recently, Chris. But I'm hopeful that a lot of these episodes give potential franchisees a look into these brands at a way more granular level so that they're not surprised on day one. I was talking with my business
Mhm.
partner the last couple of times we've gotten together, and I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we could somehow put enough content out, whether that's written, audio, visual, whatever, where prospective franchisee can see, okay, I just signed a franchise agreement. I wired some money. It went out of my bank account or my loaner's bank account. And I'm now an elite window
Mhm.
franchisee in Raleigh, North Carolina. What am I actually doing today? What does that look like? So for you,
Yeah,
Chris, how did you get into the business of what you guys actually do at Elite Window and Sparkle Squad? What attracted you to that business? I mean, I can certainly tell you with junk removal, we weren't attracted to the
yeah.
idea of throwing junk in the back of a truck, but just starting a business and all things that came with it. What was that for you in the early days? Why'd you start with that?
So in the early days, this goes way back, and I'm gonna truncate this story in the interest of time. But I was actually working in the music industry, and I was at the very peak of my career. I was recording Grammy-winning records with artists that you would know that everyone who listening to this would know the name of.
Wow.
And I was working in a recording studio, and I'd worked my whole life towards it. Like it's from as early as I can remember. I wanted to be the photographer of sound. I wanted to capture performances and record them. And I didn't want to be on the stage. I wanted to be behind it, capturing all these things. I work my guts out from the time I knew what the goal was till the time I achieved it. And at 22, I was recording, everyone from Michael Bublé assisting on that Christmas record to working on an ACDC record. And I I hated my job, and it was the worst feeling in the world. I'd worked my entire life at one singular goal without taking into perspective what achieving that goal would actually feel like and what my life would be like. I was so into the hunt that I
Mm,
didn't actually take stock of what a 50-year career in a dark recording studio might look like.
yeah.
And so about 3 years into 2.5 years, I guess, into this career, I made a really tough decision to try something new. I realized that it wasn't sustainable. I wasn't going to be able to thrive in this environment long term, and I was young enough to pivot. So I walked home through downtown Vancouver and saw a high rise window cleaner washing windows and just stopped
Mm,
and stared and thought, I got to pay my bills. That guy looks like he's having fun. This was not some grand entrepreneurial vision. It was, I need to
mm,
put food on my table. And I waited till the guy got to the ground. I talked to him. How do I become a window cleaner? Fortunately, he actually was looking for somebody, started work, a couple days later for that company.
Wow.
And I fell in love with the industry. There was an instant gratification to washing a window that I loved. There was like this freeing element. It was so opposite to what I was running away from. And then the more I spent time in the industry, I realized that our world is just total, it's made of glass. There's no room that a human being spends time in that doesn't have a window. And I just
Yeah.
thought, wow, this opportunity is
Mm.
incredibly expansive. I think I'm going to make a go at this. And over the next couple years, I learned the trade. I traveled actually around the globe because it's also totally translatable. So I went
Yeah.
to Australia and lived and washed windows. I
Mm.
traveled around the country here in Canada. And in 2012, I had enough information, I had enough experience. I was about 6 years in at that point, that I wanted to open a window cleaning company. So I had a borrowed car and a bucket. I was staying on my brother's couch because I just moved home from Australia, and I started Elite Window Cleaning. And my whole intention was to do it differently. Back in 2012, most home service companies were almost exclusively mom and pop. Very few of them had websites at the time. It was
Mhm.
really early days for modernizing of this industry. And I thought, not only do I want to be out front and like how we acquire clients and how I grow a business, but I'm going to rethink the technology that's used because in the over in Australia, I had used technology of water purification systems to wash windows, and I wanted to bring that back to North America.
Mhm.
So between 2012 and 2017, when I made the decision to scale the business through franchising, I developed technology that allowed us to wash windows up to 6 stories from the ground. I developed
Wow.
these systems that were super predictable, and I really dove into customer behavior. The customer behavior that I focused on was when we look to purchase something, we want to build trust. Like I want to trust the company that I'm going to buy something from before I decide to engage them. So
Mm.
my whole philosophy around that was transparent, open, flat rate pricing. How do we apply that to window cleaning? Let the customer make their decision. We kind of cracked all these codes, and I know I'm going flying through like a
Yeah.
monumental decade of work really,
Yeah.
really quickly here. Um, but we ended up with something that was it was really, really simplistic. It was a new way to wash windows that was faster than anyone else in North America could do it while guaranteeing the same results. And it was a trust based customer acquisition funnel that told people how much things were going to cost before we asked for their information.
Yeah.
When we cracked those two codes, this business just exploded, and we needed a way to broaden the scope. It was just doing the industry a disservice for me to keep all this hard work inside Kingston, Ontario, a town of 160,000 people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like you, I'm sure recently I looked at corporate, I looked at all the different ways I could expand. I looked at franchising, which was totally foreign to me at the time.
Yeah.
But I laid everything out side by side and I went, if I go corporate, the upside is, arguably better if I can achieve it, but it takes all the effort to a singular point.
Mhm.
And if that singular point falls short, it's just it becomes a house of cards. And I looked at franchising as a house of bricks where I could work with other entrepreneurs to teach them what I know to grow meaningful large businesses in their markets. And we could go as a unified front and really push the industry um, further than I could if I were to do it, with the Chipotle model per
Yeah.
se. So that's
Wow.
kind of how we got into French. That's a really long version of how I got into this. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's fascinating and inspiring and cool to hear. I mean, I haven't run into somebody that's come from a music background like what you mentioned. That's fascinating. So let's talk about the business itself. Where are you guys at today in your growth and your development? How many cities are you in? What does a unit look like in terms of like the population that you award franchisees to? With how many teams that and vans, if that's what you guys employ? What are the numbers and stuff look like in terms of where you're at today?
Yeah. So where we're at today is we're covering Canada right now. I guess 9, 10 units as of last month, coast to coast. Two of
Mm.
those are coming actually to new franchise training class in a week's time, which is super exciting. and we're pretty well covered. Like Canada's it's a large country, but it's,
Hmm.
population is really sparse. So, a
Yeah.
couple more units and we're going to kind of have Canada covered. And, our operations range based on the city size. We target for about between 160,000 to 200,000 population. That's kind of our sweet spot.
Hmm.
C tier, B tier, and C tier cities grow faster than metropolises. So
Yeah.
we like to get entrepreneurs into those B tier, C tier markets and grow vertically rather than trying to grow
Hmm.
wide.
Hmm.
Most operations start with one van, two technicians, really, really quick ramp to cash flow positivity in this business. So they're generally adding at least their second vehicle within their first year of operation. We try to see if we can get them to three, depending on their market, depending on their ability to get people trained up, really understand the business. But we look for what we call an empire builder, and I think I without knowing it, like the reason that I was successful in the music industry and have been successful in franchising is not because I'm special. It's not because I'm a savant. Those two things don't correlate enough to say that I had some sort of magical
Hmm.
ability. It's tenacity and it's drive. And we look for people that have reached some sort of attainment in their life. And we know that regardless what environment, whether it's recording music or washing windows or running a team or doing junk removal, you parachute this personality type into this business and
Hmm.
they're going to relentlessly grow until they have a multi seven figure opportunity in front of them.
Yeah.
And so it's less about the market. Market size obviously is dictated in the FDD, and we do negotiate around a little bit territory size, but generally it's going to be about 35,000 target households,
Hmm.
180 to 2,000 population, and
Yeah.
then we find the right owner. Everything rides or dies on the owner. We
Hmm.
certainly turn away more people than we bring in,
Yeah.
which is the nature of franchising. I think there's a lot of risk with companies that start a franchise and then sign 100 units in their first year and you're like, wow, like I know how choosy I am from the
Hmm.
hundreds and hundreds of applications and discovery processes we go through. It's like either you've tapped a well that I just don't even know exists, or there's maybe a lack of responsibility around can
Right.
this owner succeed in this model. So
Yeah.
we're super choosy, and we just teach them from day one. We have multiple verticals. So we do residential, windows, gutters, pressure washing, but we
Hmm.
also do commercial. We
Yeah.
really, really dig into commercial. So,
Got
that's
it.
where most of the glass is. Residential is your low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
Like you turn on the LSAs, you turn on the PPC ads, you have some good branding, you do some ground game, you're
Hmm.
going to get residential customers. But
Hmm.
when you bag that hospital or that retirement home or that, condominium complex,
Hmm.
those are the things that we teach our franchise owners to stack. This
Yeah.
over here on residential churns and keeps going every year. You're, you know, packing new customers on top and you can grow a really meaningful business.
Yeah.
But the magic of our model is I started in that commercial space. So I really have an understanding and my team has an understanding of what it takes to penetrate that. And
Hmm.
commercial activity, as you I'm sure know, in junk removal,
Yeah.
it is reliable, it is recession resistant, it is like all of the upsides that you look for in a service based business
Yeah.
are amplified in that commercial sector.
Yeah. That
So we
sounds, I
put it.
was going to say, that sounds very eerily similar to what we do in junk removal. And I don't know that you could say that about every home service line of business, but certainly a
Mhm.
lot. Pressure washing, junk removal, garage door repair probably is not conducive
Mhm.
to commercial accounts, I would guess.
Yeah.
Maybe epoxy flooring, like, but a lot of the stuff that we do in the home services space can be and is consumed by corporate accounts. And you're right, for us, the residential, our business is so reactive. It's probably more reactive than yours, even though yours is, Sally Sue walks out, looks at her house today, and it's like, God, this looks like a mess. Who can come out here? And you guys
Right.
better answer that phone. For us, it's even more so. Garage is full, looks like crap. Got family coming in this weekend. I need everything gone. If you don't exist on the first page of Google, you don't exist at all, right? Because they're calling the
Exactly.
first three people that pick up the phone, and you're, price shop. Anyways, for us, the other side of that, the corporate accounts is very much what we're going after, really, and a value add that we're
Mhm.
bringing to franchisees, because you're right, it's stickier, more times than not, they've got reoccurring business for you. The jobs tend to be larger, right? They're not saying, "Can you come
Yep.
pick up this one couch?" I've got a whole dumpster area that's got 50 pallets that have piled up and buggies, or we just did a store remodel. I've got all the old fixtures. Like that is absolutely the type of account we're going after. So I guess from a sales perspective, Chris, when you talk about really understanding that commercial space, can you touch on like how do you go and get those commercial accounts, and then also what the benefit is to the franchisees when you guys are doing that at a corporate level?
Yeah, so there's a few things to unpack there, and I'll start by kind of describing our corporate support structure, I guess, a little bit, and then
Yeah.
kind of that backs me into the answers to the other questions. So one of the things that I did when I had realized I was going to franchise, I looked at the business and I said, okay, we're going to franchise. Got together with the team, we whiteboarded out, and I basically listed every single thing that was an impediment to my seven figure growth. So, what slowed me down? What didn't I like doing? Where could I apply most value? Right? Like, what is the good things that I did and should have done, and what could we have done? And we developed this system that we call the back office support system. And what that is that's entrepreneurs don't have time to answer every single call. Customers want every single call answered on the first ring.
Yeah.
Obvious answer, we built a call center.
Yeah.
Second was digital communication. So, how are we going to be able to communicate with people digitally instantly when they want? Well, we
Mhm.
added a digital arm to the call center. Then we looked at our coaching and went, okay, how do I get the 10 years of knowledge we've accrued into the person on their first day? It's like, well, you can't just pour, you drown them in information. So we looked at it and we went, okay, what's relevant today? What's relevant a month in? What's relevant at year one? And we built our system into these brackets across less about time. Their time is the axis, but the identifiers were top line revenue all the way
Mhm.
up to $1 million, and identified what all those needs were at different spots. And then we coached to them. So for commercial accounts, when you purchase a Sparkle Squad franchise in the US or an Elite Window Cleaning franchise in Canada, you're going to start and we're going to focus you on cash flow positivity, low hanging fruit right out of the gates. So we're going
Mhm.
to crank up the volume on your, we call it the wall of sound. No one residentially who's thinking about window cleaning will not know your name. That's our goal in year
Mhm.
one. So
Yeah.
crank up the volume to get those quick wins, that cash flow positive, get your team up to speed. And while that's happening, we're coaching you on sales processes. And we start
Mhm.
with really, really small wins. We actually start with things that we know you're going to get the door slammed in your face on. And we
Yeah.
tell you that. It's like,
Mhm.
we're going to toughen you up by sending you to accounts that don't matter to get you the reps in the gym. And once in a while, you're going to get them. But like for the first month or two, and nothing, no account doesn't matter, but we're going to send you to Starbucks and you're going to really have to fight because they're
Yeah.
going to have a corporate reason and they're probably going to say no. And no is the best thing you can hear when you're learning to sell your business,
Yeah.
because then you can unpack what I did to cause that no. And once you can get to yes, then we're going to graduate you into car dealership status, which are,
Mhm.
they're all made of glass, they all get their windows cleaned. And because they all get their windows cleaned, now we're going to teach you to tell somebody or show somebody why they should choose you over their current vendor. And then that's another skill that you're taking forward. And by the time you get up to those large commercial accounts, you're about 3 months in, 4 months into like the sales season, and you're pretty darn seasoned. We really
Mhm.
focus on like the intentionality of what we're doing every day and why we're downloading the information we're downloading into
Yeah.
franchise owners. Because if we just said, here's the playbook, like how many people are actually going to read and execute the playbook? I think it's no one, and
Yeah.
myself included. Like you need it
Mhm.
digested or pre-chewed a bit, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's great. So a lot of outbound. Is there at the corporate level where your teams are, Chris? Are you guys helping franchisees with those outbound efforts? Like, do you have folks
Yeah.
dialing, or is it a lot of just the franchisee? Hey, we're coaching you, but you got to pick up the phone and call. You got to go into these
So
local businesses.
we have a commercial outbound center here. It's more lead aggregation in warm intros because
Mhm.
commercial, like unlike residential, so 90 plus percent of all residential jobs we put on your schedule. Like the lion's share of the work in your first year is going to flow through the call center directly to your schedule. Your
Mhm.
team goes and executes. In commercial, it's a relationship business. It
Yeah.
really is. Like the size of the accounts, the dollar value, the duration of the accounts. We have tried and we run an outbound center. And what we have found is it's always works best when we can warm the lead, pass it to the franchise owner, and they can put a face on it. They can put a personality behind it, that we get the door cracked for them. But really,
Mhm.
we can't walk through it in the commercial space and be effective.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to receive a cold call and book, $100,000 university project. It's just not, it's going to
Yeah.
take that effort and time. So we
Mhm.
focus more on downloading the skill that franchise owners need. Like if somebody doesn't believe that they have the ability to sell truly in their core, this
Mhm.
probably isn't the model for them, because the really big win is when you can, and I mean, you're not selling used cars, you're selling a product and service that they have come to you and
Right.
requested. But there is a level of aptitude where it's
Mhm.
knowing who to say no to and who to say yes to. I guess
Yeah.
it comes back to that question from earlier.
Yeah. And that's true from franchise or independent. And maybe
Hmm.
maybe I'm biased because I come from a sales background, but and I've told people this over my career. I'm like, I'm not saying that sales, like the sales department's the most department in the company. Everybody knows that all departments have to be walking in sync for the ship to set sail and continue sailing. But if you don't understand at a core level that sales is the lifeblood of a company, then you're kind of
Hmm.
screwed, because if you don't have revenue, you don't have a company, and you don't have roles, and you don't have person, you don't have people to pay. Like there's no money to pay you out of. So that trickles all the way down to a franchise candidate who's interested in coming into to the brand. Because if you too don't understand it, and I'll go further and say you don't necessarily have to be on the front lines making those calls or being the face of the company in the field building the relationships, but you have to understand that that has to exist, and you have to have
Precisely.
people, have to have people in place doing that. If you're not, if you don't understand that, then you're going to suffer, because then you become the guy that just relies on Chris and his team back at corporate to drive the online activity. And maybe your 95% of your business is residential, when in reality, it could be 70-30 or 60-40. And so
Yeah.
the success of any company, again, franchise or independent, has to come from the premium you put on sales. And I see a lot of, like, I call it mom and pop, but I probably should transition that to independence. In the junk removal space, it seems like everybody does junk removal. Those folks who do it independently seem to struggle a lot with sales,
Hmm.
because they're not understanding the importance of the local in-field marketing. And it is relationship. Even in our junk removal business, something as simple as, like, oh, you can't possibly mess this up, I could get anybody to come do this service, I just want the cheapest one. People still revert back to who they know, trust, who's
Hmm.
responsive, have they seen you, have they shaken your hand. And so I align with you very well in that. Going back to,
It's
like, yeah, go ahead.
just to add one more point onto that. It doesn't need to be a core competency. It needs to be a core understanding
That's right.
that inputs equal outputs in your business. And the marketing is amazing. Like our marketing systems, we centralize the marketing and it really works incredible. Like our conversion rate in the call center is just above 76% on all incoming calls into the IVR this year.
Mm,
That means if you've called this business, there's a 76% chance that you bought something. It's insane.
yeah.
But the market's balance is there's simply more commercial activity than residential. There just
Mhm.
is. So you can have the best converting team and a great business and it flows cash, but you've got your back to this huge opportunity. And whether, like you said, whether you're going to be out there selling or you're going to have a salesperson on staff, as long as you understand that if it's not your core competency, that you need to facilitate it in some way as the business
Yeah.
owner. it's
Yeah.
it's just amazing that we live in a world where technology, we'll use the term independence, technology and the technological advantage that franchise owners had in, say, something like an online booking engine or a CRM that was robust. 10 years ago, if you had a robust CRM as a franchise owner, well,
Yeah.
80% of the independents didn't. Now
Mhm.
there's hundreds of home service CRMs and you can get
Yeah.
them for $90 a month. So we've almost gone full circle back to what actually matters is
Yeah.
we had this technical advantage, but what actually matters is the knowledge and the understanding of how to grow this business in a
Mhm.
sustainable way, agnostic of whatever widget you or your competitor has. It's more about the why behind it. So I
Yeah.
just thought,
And the
that
last
tied in.
point on that thread too, Chris, for me is, you know, same thing with other departments. Like I have a deep understanding of how important accounting is. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not even close. I don't even want to be, but I understand that that is a core piece of business. And so I'm going to make sure that that box is checked, even though
Hmm.
I'm not the person doing it. So again, just it spans across the entire organization in every pillar. On the franchise development side, what are some of the kind of frequent reasons or ones that maybe you hear often from franchise candidates that you love and you want to award a territory to that maybe pull out at the last minute, or it doesn't even have to be the last minute, but they pull out at some point and say, thanks for the offer, but we're going in a different direction. What are some of those reasons if there's a common theme, if any?
Yeah, that's a good that's a question I've never been asked before. Um, I would say the most common reason is fear of the leap, and they don't end up purchasing a franchise. I would say
Yeah.
that is like the delta compared to every other possible reason. It
Mm.
is, I now understand what this takes, and I realize that entrepreneurship isn't for me. And
Yeah.
that's part of the empire builder mentality, is they're willing to take the leap.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say, and when candidates self-select out, it is they've come to a realization. So we don't really like, in our brand, we don't do a lot of sales in the discovery process. It's, we're going to educate you, and we're going to come to a mutual decision. We're evaluating you the entire time, you're evaluating us, and
Mhm.
together we're going to decide if we meet at the right, inflection point. And we should, if we do truly do, we should both realize that by the end of the
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
um, so I would say there's a few points where we realize that somebody's looking to get something unattainable out of this business. Like they want to be fully absentee, but they don't want to put a GM in the business. Whenever that's, said,
Yeah.
well, I just want to have technicians. And it's like, well, no, we're not, you have to be an entrepreneur if you want to buy a
Yeah.
business. One of the other big ones is they're looking at home services versus other verticals.
Mm.
And they realize that home services is, although the upside long term is often far, like, the financial upside, or the net margin is often far higher up front,
Mhm.
there's just more effort. And they
Yeah.
realize that they want to open the Taco Bell on the busy corner, and they're going to have a 6% margin maybe. And
Mhm.
but they can calculate that over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But it's funny, most of the time it is because they realize that they're not in a position to commit as fully as entrepreneurship requires.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Well, let's end with this topic and question, Chris. So I signed my agreement. I'm a new franchise owner of Sparkle Squad here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's day one for me. What is actually happening in my world? Like, do you turn over to franchisees, like not just the ops manual, but do you turn over, hey, here's what you're doing in your first week. Here's the first,
Oh yeah.
60, 90. What does that look like? Because I know I
So
can speak before you go, Chris.
yeah.
My business partner was a franchisee 20 years ago, and he signed his franchise agreement. This was like wireless, in the wireless space, selling like cell phone accessories and stuff. Signed an agreement day one, nothing. It was just like, yeah, you're a franchisee, go do it, and you're just kind of sitting there on your hands. And I'm like, well, I would expect that if for you to have zero clue what to do if the franchisor isn't providing you anything, So
Right.
I'm hopeful that franchisors in today's world don't do that, but maybe you can talk about it a little bit more at length on your side.
Yeah, another really good question that I've never been asked on a podcast, and I'm super proud of. So I'm happy to. So
Yeah.
the first thing we do is we schedule a celebration call, and this in the day you sign, we're gonna schedule a celebration call with the key team members, yourself, the development person who you worked with, and we're gonna spend an hour together and figure out your why, and really
Mhm.
dig into not like tactical planning, but like, what, now that we're going, you made this commitment. Ask
Yeah.
me anything you want, and we're going to get to the root of what you want to get out of this year, so that we can understand and support you in it. At the same time, we're part of a larger brand group. So we're acquired by Happy Nest Brands
Mm.
back in 2022. So we have an opener, like someone who runs our opener department. She's
Yep.
going to reach out and she's going to walk you through a 90-day checklist. So in the next 90 days, here is everything you need to do. And we're going to have calls every 2 days to get
Mm,
you, make sure you're on track, cover all your bases before you come to new franchise training class. Because our hope is when a franchise owner arrives at new franchise training class, they are going to spend a week with us, and that is like the cherry on top. When they
yeah.
leave new franchise training class, they are prepared. So we
Mm,
spend 90 days. It's pretty intense. Like it should be, right? You're opening a business. You
yeah.
just made, a six-figure investment into something.
Yeah.
So into yourself, right? You just made an investment in yourself. So let's go deep on getting you ready. And we work super close with your FBA. So you're assigned a coach, and you're with that coach every single week, making sure ad hoc stuff on top of that. And then yeah, we have a week here for Elite. It's here in Kingston for new franchise training class, and for Sparkle Squad, it's in Homedale, New Jersey. And
Mm,
we spend a week together. I fly out to bring the leadership team down, and we take all the new owners in that cohort, and we teach them everything we possibly can strategically. Again, we don't want to give them too much
yeah.
information up front that they're just going to be overwhelmed with.
Hmm.
And we build that bond in that cohort, because I think you mentioned it at the top. It's the bond of this cohort you're going through new franchise training class with. You're going to know, the very high likelihood you're going to know and communicate with these people for the rest of your life. It's such a
Yep.
cool way to put people together at the same state. Like it's like everyone's the same age all of a sudden. You're all
Mm,
one day old as it relates to,
yep.
your business. And yeah, from new franchise training class, it is, we go out, do a market visit right after, and you start running the plan. And
Yeah.
we have yet to come across an owner who said, I didn't know what to do when we were launched. I
Yeah.
knew, like, they know exactly what to do because we've taken that time.
Amazing. Well, I'm not in the market, Chris, to buy a franchise, but if I were, you guys would be. I mean, yeah, I'm getting excited. Maybe this is just the entrepreneurial spirit in me, but like I have these types of calls, and obviously they vary from brand to brand, but like your passion obviously shines through for the brand, but also the things that you guys have put in place is very apparent.
Mm.
And so for anybody, listening to this podcast, I'm hopeful that they kind of hear and feel that, if at all interested in getting into business ownership by way of franchise, specifically home services, like you're basically what you just outlined and ensures success. And that's really what a franchise candidate is looking for. They're looking for the hard facts, like how much does it cost up front? What are my ongoing costs? So on and so forth. How long until I'm cash flow positive? But really, it's like, what's my failure? What's my chance of failure?
Right.
And everything you mentioned really minimizes that chance of failure. And they've got this mastermind community that they're potentially buying into. So great to hear. We're the same way here at Junk Raider. But yeah, any parting thoughts, Chris, that you want to leave the audience with?
I would say, thank you for saying that, by the way. First of
Yeah,
all, like, that means a lot, because I did really put my whole life into this for the last 12 years, and
yeah,
I'm glad it shows that I'm passionate. I would say anyone who's listening in the United States, we are launching Sparkle Squad actively. It launched in November, and we have 100% white space across the most franchisable country in the world. It is,
mm,
we have a 10-year long system that was baked in Canada, and now we get to roll out with every single territory open. Like, this is like a unicorn situation for
yeah,
us, and it's really, really exciting. So yeah, if you're listening to it, and it resonates, please reach out. And for anyone who's not interested in owning a window cleaning franchise but is listening because they're interested in business ownership, I would say trust your gut. Don't listen to anybody. Trust
mm,
your instinct. Trust yourself, because every step of the turn that I took to get me to where I am today, somebody told me that what I was doing was either foolish or couldn't be done.
yeah,
And I knew that I was in control and they weren't. And what they perceived, to be what I was doing would be foolish, was just them being jealous. So if you really are thinking about an entrepreneur and you're like becoming an entrepreneur, buying a franchise, and you look around and people are like, I don't know, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?
yeah.
Look inside, listen to yourself, trust your gut, read some books. Like,
Mm.
you'll get there. So
Well,
that's
and to piggyback off that, Chris, and end it there, I think we're in a point in our in a point in life in our moment of time where it's easier to get started than ever before. You
mhm,
know, there's so much opportunity that if you happen to fail, boom, you're on to the next thing. It's not, you know, we're not living back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s where everything was, you know, you get filtered into corporate jobs and, you know, God forbid you lose a job and to go and start something on it's, we're in
mhm,
a day and age where you can pick up the next thing. And so when I ask people, hey, what would you change if you could change anything? Go back in your earlier life and do it over again. If people ask me that, I always revert to I would have started way sooner. Just go.
mhm,
Like that's my best advice is just go and you figure it out. And it's not like I'm saying anything groundbreaking there, but for me that was really difficult. You know, my
mhm.
upbringing was such that the traditional schooling, if you want to, you know, go beyond high school, you go to college and get a degree that filters you into a job. And it was like I wasn't necessarily influenced by entrepreneurs much, and maybe that's you know my own fault for not seeking it out. But my hope would have been that in high school even I started
Right.
something or beyond. You know, as I'm getting to the end of the high school degree, like let's look at seriously look at the fact that I do not have any interest in legal, medical, accounting. I don't have any of that stuff. So for college and going and getting a degree, not to get off on a tangent there, but for me, wouldn't have yielded as many benefits as if I started
Mm.
a shoe repair company or anything,
Anything.
a
Yep.
lemonade stand, like anything. And so that's my biggest piece of advice. But Chris, man, I appreciate the conversation. This has been super helpful. It's always inspirational for me as another franchisor to connect with folks like you. But I'm hopeful that all the candidates out there that are looking at any franchise, which you and I both know there are massive amounts out there that you can choose from. Hopefully, this type of experience, this audio experience stands out from the rest so that they can kind of start to narrow the search and maybe reach out to you guys. What's the best way? I know quick Google search, Chris, for Elite Window Cleaning or Sparkle Squad would get them there, but what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Yeah, I would say elite window cleaning franchising.com, sparkle squad franchising.com, or just find us on LinkedIn. You know, that
Cool.
was how we connected, Davis. You know, we're active, we're out there. I think the empire builder who hears this will find and wants to do it will find me, and we'll end up having a conversation. So yeah,
Awesome.
this was super fun, man, and I really appreciate it.
Well, we'll have to do it again and dive even deeper into different subjects. I look forward to that. But Chris, yeah, man, thanks again. Best of luck in the rest of the journey. We'll be watching from afar.
Awesome, thanks, dude.